A government panel is warning Americans are being, quote, bombarded with cancer-causing sources, including chemicals, radiation, and other hazards threatening, quote, grievous harm. The president's cancer panel says cancers caused by environmental exposures have been, quote, grossly underestimated and require stronger government regulation. The panel urges President Obama to, quote, most strongly use the power of your office to remove the carcinogens and other toxins from our food, water, and air.
What's been happening in developed countries in the last 4 or 5 decades is we've seen a big rise in the incidence of cancer. Just after the Second World War, there was a 1 in 4 chance of getting cancer in this country, and now it's less than 1 in 3. For men in America, it's very nearly 1 in 2. We have to ask ourselves, why is that happening? And the answer is that it has to be something to do with the environment in which we live, which is the world that you live in, and not the genes that you inherit from your parents. The chemical industry is a very big industry. It's about 7% of the world's gross national product. And we make between 40 to 60,000 chemicals commercially. And in general, there's about 1,000 new ones added each year. So there's no escape. Everyone's exposed. We have created ourselves quite a nasty problem.
There's up to about 80, believe it or not, different carcinogens in routinely used cosmetics and toiletries. They admit these carcinogens, many of these carcinogens are present, but they say, oh well, at low levels they're okay. The suggestion that low levels of carcinogens are safe is scientifically and palpably false and self-serving. So here we're dealing with multiplicity of carcinogens applied to large areas of the skin, from lifetime, from birth till death, public being given no information whatsoever about it.
The Interphone Study Group has just released results of its 13-country study examining the link between brain tumors and cell phones.
This just published study is seriously flawed. A group of experts, including myself, co-authored a report. The purpose of our report is to explain these flaws in the Interphone study, hoping that the media, governments, and the public will understand what so many independent scientists already know. Cell phones are causing brain tumors. This is not an opinion, this is the science. The overwhelming weight of the evidence is that there is a very significant risk of getting a brain tumor from cell phone use. The public and the governments who funded this research of cell phones and brain tumors should not let the industry get away with this.
So much decision-making is made behind closed doors, as it was with Enron, without any safeguards. They're made in private. They have industry consultants, no representatives of non-governmental organizations. And I testified and provided a detailed listing of companies, major corporations, with examples of how they manipulate or suppress or destroy information. Members of corporations knowingly refuse to divulge information on hazards of their products or processes. Citizens all over democracies are denied the right to have information which lies buried in government and industry files. Once you give this information to the public, you'll have a grassroots revolution demanding safety.
And right now in the U.S., 91% of the soybean fields are genetically modified soy. We have GMO sugar beets creating genetically modified sugar in this country, and that's not labeled either. All kinds of GMO corn. I mean, we should be concerned, not only because we're not being told the truth, but also because the testing hasn't been done. So I think that these scientists, by playing God with the food supply, developing these frankenfoods, they are setting us up for future famine, starvation, crop failures. If the FDA allows GMO salmon into the food supply, they could allow any genetically engineered animal. If you want to see some crazy stuff out in the stores, look at children's medication, over-the-counter medication for kids. It's loaded with aspartame, it's loaded with artificial colors. The cough syrups are a complete joke. I mean, even some of the health regulators say they don't even work, and they could actually harm your children. It's what they feed kids, what they manufacture for you to feed your kids in this country should be a crime.
It's in the tap water we drink and many of the foods we eat. And for decades, we've been told it helps fight cavities. It's fluoride, the kind you brush your teeth with, and the kind that's been added to our city water supply since 1969. Every public water district in Georgia is required by law to do so. The ADA maintains at optimal levels, water fluoridation is a safe and effective way to prevent dental decay.
3 scientists, myself, James Beck, and Spedding Micklem, have written a whole book indicating that the science does not support the effectiveness of fluoridation, and there are very many health concerns. A bottle-fed child in Austin is getting 250 times more fluoride than nature intended. At birth, the baby's blood-brain barrier is not fully formed, which means that fluoride can enter the brain. The Center for Disease Control admitted that the major benefits of fluoride are topical. It works from the outside of the tooth, not from inside the body. One of those studies indicates from China that IQ in children had lowered at 1.9 parts per million. We've now got 100 animal studies which shows that fluoride can damage the brain, and we now have 23 studies which indicate that fluoride lowers IQ in children. Also, to make matters worse, the chemicals used are not pharmaceutical grade, they're industrial waste products from the phosphate fertilizer industry. The National Research Council produced this 507-page report with 1,100 references suggesting to the EPA that they lower the safe drinking water standard. After 4.5 years, the EPA has not done that, which indicates to you that politics is operating here. I've researched the issue of fluoridation for 14 years. It's been the most frustrating effort in my life to try to stop this practice, which I think is a huge betrayal of the public trust, both by the U.S. Public Health Services and Department of Health and Human Services, and all the cogs in the wheel down to the local health districts.
We are now in the midst of a major cancer epidemic. Industry is largely responsible for this overwhelming epidemic of cancer, in which 1 in every 2 men get cancer in their lifetimes, and 1 in every 3 women get cancer in their lifetimes. Most industries have known about this and have attempted to trivialize these risks. If I take a gun and shoot you, that's criminal. If I expose you to some chemicals which knowingly are going to kill you, what difference is there? The difference is that it takes longer to kill you.
How many Americans have been killed by terrorists, even if you believe the government's story on 9/11? How many have been killed by terrorists in the last 10 years? It's probably, what, 4,000, 3,000, 4,000 Americans killed by terrorists. The FDA, through its lack of action in protecting the American people, through its lack of appropriate action, has been involved in the deaths of literally hundreds of thousands of Americans. A huge multiple of the number of people that have been killed by terrorists. And whose fault is this? It's this conspiracy between the government regulators and the food industries and the pharmaceutical industries that don't want you to know. They don't want people to know what they're eating, because if they did, they might choose something different. And you know, this is the really scary part about the whole thing, is this enforced ignorance combined with their censorship, combined with the tyranny tactics that they use to go after these companies, you know, the natural health companies.
They confiscated all of our medical records, and it took us about 12 years or 14 years to recover these medical records. It was also the neglect of human well-being. Really very sick people, they took medical records, and we needed these medical records to really fight for the lives of these patients. But they took this away. They didn't care for these patients. The patients could die. They were not important.
The FDA and pharma quickly realized that if Dr. Brzezinski's discovery would be given a fair review process, not only would chemotherapy and radiation dwindle into obscurity, financially crippling the industry, but it would also mean that for the first time in history, all of that income would funnel away from pharma and into the lap of one single scientist who holds the exclusive patent rights.
The government is attacking and destroying natural health and natural product companies.
I don't want the FDA to take this right from me. I came 18 years ago from communist Romania, and the tyrannous dictator Ceausescu never stopped a doctor from treating anybody. How can we have something like this in the United States?